Tips for sustainable farming. Farming is an important part of our society and economy, but it can also be environmentally destructive. In order to keep farming sustainable, we need to learn about and take measures to improve our practices. This video's post is designed to help you do just that. We will cover topics such as sustainable land management, reducing waste, and using natural fertilizers and pesticides. By following these tips, you can help farming become more sustainable and help protect the environment. 1. So you want to be a sustainable farmer? If you're thinking of becoming a sustainable farmer, you're in for a big commitment. Not only will you need to change how you do things on the farm, you'll also need to change how you live. When you become a sustainable farmer, you're swapping out traditional, non-sustainable methods of farming for methods that are more environmentally friendly and sustainable. There are many different methods of sustainable farming, but one of the most common is permaculture. Permaculture is a design system that combines aspects of ecology, horticulture, and land management. Permaculture is based on the principle that humans can live in harmony with the environment by creating structures and patterns that mimic natural systems. One of the biggest benefits of becoming a sustainable farmer is that it helps to protect the environment. By using more sustainable methods of farming, you're reducing the amount of waste that's produced and you're also reducing the amount of energy that's needed to run the farm. There's a lot to consider if you want to become a sustainable farmer, but the rewards are worth it. By following the principles of sustainable farming, you're helping to protect the environment and you're also helping to improve the quality of life for the people who live on the farm. 2. The basics of sustainable farming. There are a few things you can do to make your farming more sustainable. First of all, make sure you're using organic methods whenever possible. This means using techniques that don't involve using synthetic pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers. Another key factor is to keep your farm in a healthy state. This means keeping the soil fertile and healthy, and ensuring that there's enough water available. Finally, be sure to compost any organic material you can. This will help to reduce the amount of waste that needs to be disposed of, and it'll also help to improve the soil's fertility. 3. Conservation practices for sustainable farming. One of the most important things you can do for a sustainable farming program is to implement conservation practices. These practices help to reduce the amount of water, energy, and fertilizer needed to produce a crop. One of the most common conservation practices is crop rotation. Crop rotation helps to prevent soil erosion and buildup of organic matter, which can reduce the amount of water needed to grow a crop. By planting different crops in the same area over time, you help to build up a reserve of nutrients in the soil. Another important practice is crop cover. Crop cover helps to reduce the amount of sunlight that is able to reach the soil, which can reduce the amount of plants that can grow. By growing crops in a cover crop, you help to prevent erosion and build up a reserve of nutrients in the soil. Finally, you should also consider using green manure. Green manure is a plant that is grown specifically to help improve the soil. By growing green manure, you help to break down the organic matter in the soil, which can help to reduce the amount of water needed to grow a crop. 4. Animal husbandry for sustainable farming. Sustainable farming is all about producing food in a way that does not harm the environment. One of the most important aspects of sustainable farming is the way you raise your animals. Raising livestock in a sustainable way means providing them with an adequate amount of food, water, and shelter. It is also important to keep your animals healthy and free from diseases. 5. Planting for sustainable farming. When it comes to sustainable farming, there are a few key points you need to keep in mind. One of the most important things you can do is to study your soil. If you don't, you'll most likely plant the wrong type of crop and the wrong kind of fertilizer. This can lead to over-fertilization and depleted soil resources. Another important point to consider is the use of cover crops. This is farmland that is planted after the main crops have been harvested and before the soil is worked again. Cover crops help to prevent erosion and they provide nutrients to the soil. Another important consideration is the use of green manure. This is a plant that is grown specifically to fertilize the soil. Green manure is a great way to improve soil quality and it's also a renewable resource. By following these tips, you can start practicing sustainable farming and see positive results. 6. Harvesting for sustainable farming. Harvesting for sustainable farming is an important part of the process. When you start harvesting, it's important to think about the whole process from beginning to end. The first step is to identify what needs to be harvested. This may include plants, fruits, vegetables, flowers, or livestock. Once you know what needs to be harvested, You need to think about how to harvest it without damaging the plant or animal. There are a few different ways to harvest for sustainable farming. One way is to use a sickle or scythe. This is the oldest method and it's very effective. Another way is to use a harvester. This is a machine that uses blades to cut the plant. It's a more modern way and it's less damaging to the plant. The last way to harvest is to use a combination of the first two. For example, you could use a sickle to cut the plant and then use a harvester to cut it. This is the most efficient way to harvest and it's the least damaging to the plant. 7. Marketing for sustainable farming. There is a lot of talk these days about sustainable farming, and for good reason. Farming has a huge impact on the environment, and it's important that we do our part to help preserve it. Sustainable farming is different than traditional, conventional farming in a few ways. First, it focuses on using natural resources rather than large amounts of synthetic inputs. Second, it aims to improve soil health and productivity through better management of inputs and pests. Third, it considers the environmental impact of production processes. There are a number of things you can do to promote sustainable farming. First, educate your customers about the benefits of sustainable farming. Second, use sustainable marketing materials. Third, work with local farmers to find sustainable methods that they can adopt. Fourth, develop partnerships with organizations that promote sustainable farming. Fifth, encourage your employees to take a vested interest in sustainable farming. 8. Education for sustainable farming. Sustainable farming is the farming method that tries to maintain soil fertility, biodiversity, water resources, and climate stability. There are many ways to practice sustainable farming, but the most common way is to use organic methods. In order to be a sustainable farmer, you have to have a good understanding of the different methods and how they work. This way, you can make the best choices for your farm and the environment. One of the most important things you can do is educate yourself on the different methods. This way, you can choose the best way to farm for your specific area and situation. There are many online resources that can help you learn more about sustainable farming. Another important thing to remember is to be flexible. Sustainable farming isn't always about doing things the same way year after year. If you try to be too rigid, you may find that your farm isn't as sustainable as you thought it was. 9. Sustainable farming for a global food system. There is no one right way to farm, but there are a number of ways to do it that are more sustainable. You can try to follow organic practices, use natural fertilizers, or use methods that are more efficient. When it comes to organic farming, you should try to avoid using synthetic pesticides and herbicides. Instead, you should use plants that are effective against pests and diseases. You can also try to rotate your crops to help keep your soil healthy. You can also try to use natural fertilizers. These are made from plant materials such as manure, waste products, and rocks. You can also use compost to fertilize your land. You can also try to use methods that are more efficient. For example, you can use irrigation systems to water your plants. You can also use drip systems to water your plants. You can also use systems that use wind or solar power to power your machines. 10. Conclusion. Sustainable farming is key to preserving our environment. It's also important to our economy. By following these tips, you can help preserve our environment and keep your business afloat. 1. Choose a sustainable farming method. There are many sustainable farming methods, but the three most common are organic, sustainable, and integrated. 2. Use sustainable fertilizers and pesticides. Use sustainable fertilizers and pesticides that are made from natural ingredients. 3. Use renewable energy. Use renewable energy to power your farm equipment. 4. Use natural water resources. Use natural water resources to irrigate your crops. 5. Use biomass as a fuel. Use biomass as a fuel to power your farm equipment. 6. Use crop rotation. Crop rotation is a way to keep your soil healthy and prevent soil erosion. 7. Educate your customers. Educate your customers about the benefits of sustainable farming. 8. Support the farming community. Support the farming community by buying local produce. 9. Advocate for sustainable farming. Advocate for sustainable farming by speaking up when you hear about wrong practices. 10. Conclusion. Sustainable farming is a key part of being environmentally responsible and keeping your business afloat. By following these tips, you can help preserve our environment and keep your customers happy. We hope you enjoyed our video post about sustainable farming. Sustainable farming is a growing trend and for good reason. It is the future of agriculture. We discussed some of the key principles of sustainable farming and gave you some tips on how to start implementing them in your farm. If you're interested in learning more about sustainable farming, Be sure to check out some of our other video posts. Be sure to check out some of our other video